Hello, you're back with Dave and Tim at the Single Malt Review, and today's dram comes from Drinks by the Dram. This is from the Island Whisky tasting set, and it's possibly our first close look at a Jura whisky. We have sadly neglected one of the fine classic Island Scotch whiskies.
Yeah, one of the classics, indeed. Yeah, it seems astonishing, but no, I don't think we've actually had any sort of brush with Jura whatsoever.
Possibly one of our many advent calendars. We've tried several in our own time, off camera, of course, over the years, but we've never really delved deep into one, and here is one we've not tried before. This is the first release of Jura Two-One-Two. It's a fairly new offering from Jura. This was a 2006 distillation, bottled 13 years later, 2019. So why is it called Two-One-Two? Because there were at the time 212 people living on Jura. That is it. That
seems like an astonishingly small number, but I guess Jura is not a big place. I think the distillery is probably its primary claim to fame these days.
This is bottled at a curious 47.5% ABV, which is nice and high, which I like to see. Matured primarily in ex-bourbon casks, but then finished in Chinkapin oak, which is the North and Central American oak chestnut, or chestnut oak.
Yeah, so new one to us.
New one to me, but yeah, a good point of difference, I guess.
And the tasting notes are distinctly confected, so we'll be looking for kind of a sweet dram going on here.
We'll delve into those once we've given our own thoughts.
So Jura, trawling my memory, because though we have individually tried Jura off and on throughout the years, though not featuring it on the channel, it is a fairly, unless you've got a heavily peated example, it's one of the more gentler island styles of whiskey. So it has that sort of subtle narrative edge to it, but otherwise it's probably much closer to... It's way closer to, say, Arran than it is to a Tobermory or a Talisker, which much more embrace the more Islay style of how things go.
Well, even Jura's more peated offerings, I recall, still being quite sweet and engaging.
Yeah, it's a pretty gentle dram. It's pretty much, it's a pretty easygoing one. It's not a bad first whiskey, actually. If you were picking them out on a lineup, you could easily use Jura as a kind of an intro dram. But so we'll see what we've got here. It's a pretty lovely colour. No particular mention of colour, positive or negative of it, so we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that is conceivably natural. Chill filtration, we'll be able to find that out. Proof will be in the pudding there once I put some water in.
I expect probably none, because like a high-end, well-respected single malt.
You could hope. We'll see how we go. That is a very oaky nose. What do we got here?
Yeah, it's plenty of that fresh oak, I guess, from that cask finish. There's a bit of Madeira cake.
There's a wee bit of citrus, and there is a lot of... You may have just seeded my mind with this because you invoked the name, but there is a little bit of... If you've had roasted chestnut before, there's a sort of sweet, starchy kind of element to this. Sweet, starchy, and nutty all at the same time.
It's a bit chestnut oak character. Well, the tasting notes from Drinks by the Dram promise a nose of lemon and poppy seed sponge cake with lemon zest, cinnamon French toast, and a buttery caramel.
Okay.
Cinnamon spice and creamy toffee.
Don't know if I can do the poppy seed, but what is the aroma of poppy seed? I don't know. That's more of a taste for me. But anyway, we'll see. What's on the palate?
Ooh, that is a nice balance of strength and age. It's got a little bit of fiery kick to it still, but at 13 years old, it's mellowed nicely. But that high alcohol strength means it's still got some vigor to it.
That kind of escalates. That again, it's very wooden. The oak is large and in charge.
Here come the poppy seeds. There's like orange poppy seed cake, something I'm particularly fond of. Don't have often. Yeah, a good cakiness. Lots of plenty of fruit, some currants, some citrus.
Yeah, that is downright. That is really quite wooden. The oak is well in control of this one, and it's largely bourbon. We're getting quite a popcorny, buttery, vanilla bourbon tour de force coming here, and I'm trying to tease this apart from this Chinkapin oak, which This is the first time I even knew that it existed as something that you would ever age a whiskey in. So I'm not sure I can really lift any individual flavours out of that for. But what I'm sure one thing it does do is just add to the otherwise, wooden nature of this whiskey, and it is very, very woody and pretty dense as well.
Well, the tasty notes for palate from Drinks by the Dram are a bit more sparse than the nosy notes, like shorter. Apparently there's a treacle note with cooked apple, lemon curd and boiled fruit sweeties, supported by praline.
I think treacle can bugger off. I don't think there's any treacle in here. There might be golden syrup. They might have got confused as to which tin they were opening, but treacle, that's just a way deeper, darker
It's a
flavour
rich
for
sweetness,
me.
but it's quite light. It's not the heavy, almost burning
Don't know what
sweetness of a strong
treacle they're eating over in the UK, but ain't like our treacle. But yeah, this one, it's got a tremendous concentration.
It is wonderfully cakey, a good bourbon influence.
I wonder how it's going to go with water.
Yeah, at 47.5%, it'll take quite a bit of water, I think.
I think we might lose the oiliness, and some of the magic might drop away.
I'll go for a sparse pour then and see what happens.
No measurable effect, which makes me a little suspicious they did chill filter this. But I can't be absolutely sure. It would still be a pretty remarkable strength to get away with a non-chill filtered whiskey. Is higher than usual, though it was. And that's brought out some more fruit, as it so often does. But it's still very much in that oaky spectrum.
Yeah, it has smoothed out some of the wood on the tongue. It's still there, but it's possibly subdued a little bit of the heat, obviously you'd expect.
I like what it's
taken
done
off some of the spice.
Yeah, there's a bit more bounce on that palate now, a bit more fruity goodness.
It's brought out the red currants. There's a bit of a currant flavour there before, but it's really coming to the fore for me.
What this is completely unlike any Jura whiskey I've had, and granted it's probably been a couple of years since I've ever tasted it. They've pulled a full Aaron here. They've gone full Aaron with this whiskey, and that, was I tasting this blind, I would have been completely befuddled by the fact that this was produced on an island. There is almost no maritime quality to this whatsoever. There is not even a skerrick of peat here. This is... They do use a tiny smidge of peat in their normal output. I don't think they've used any here. This is just a completely straight-laced whiskey.
Assumed by the finish of New Oak.
The last place I would have pegged this is coming from an island, which is not to say that makes it a bad island, because I mean, so goes a great many Arran whiskies, just because they go for that they're more mainland style. It doesn't matter where they come from, but I remember Jura as being a bit more maritimely and a bit more peat influenced than this one. I think this is kind of an outlier, which just shines even greater light on why we should actually look at some more classic Juras so that we have a baseline for tasting the more weird ones. But as it is, going in with nothing but a shadow of memory, this is a weird Jura. This is a very weird Jura. Yeah,
but there's nonetheless
weird char coming through now.
Very tasty whiskey with a very curious twist thanks to that novel cask finish. And for me, I would rate this at 87 points.
Yeah.
It is not a transformative whiskey experience. What it is, though, is very enjoyable. Pick it up, sip it, try some familiar flavours, get some new, interesting character too. It's a good age, be not so young, but it's just immature, but not so old that it's starting to get bogged down or just excessively woody. I
think I'm in a pretty, very, very similar boat here, sailing around the evidently minuscule island of Jura, if they can only fit how many people on it. It's a weird whiskey, but I like it. And it's weird in that how conventional it is. It's weird that there's so much of a derivation from what you'd consider the normal Jura style, the normal island style. But I think I'm right there with you with an 87.
Cool.
There's heaps to enjoy. It's just not really carrying the Jura label in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of its own thing. It's almost closer to. I normally try and do my comparison. This is like the woodiness in here. It's almost like a Glen Grant more than a Jura, and that's a very, very different distillery. Yeah, I don't know, crazy stuff. Anyway, stick with us for the next one, and who knows what's coming out now. This is an interesting start to Dave's wee island tasting set here. So there'll be some proper freaky peats coming up. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Slanger.